$2,500 spent at a Houston strip club. That is just one of several questionable expenses billed to the Port of Oakland by a high-ranking official. A 2-month investigation by KTVU first uncovered this surprising spending. And now there are new questions about who was benefiting. KTVU's Eric Rasmussen is live now in Oakland, where the port just finished an emergency meeting. Eric.
Right, Julie. The meeting adjourned a little more than 2 hours ago. The port would only say it's hiring an attorney to look into these unusual expenses. Now, we've been going through them for the past few weeks, and we discovered this bill for that strip club in Houston is just the tip of the iceberg. For at least one night, Treasure Strip Club in Houston is where the Port of Oakland's maritime director, James Kwan, claimed he was doing business. KTVU uncovered a $4,300 receipt from the Gentlemen's Club and another $155 in tips while reviewing more than 1,000 pages of expenses obtained through the California Public Records Act. But it's what Kwan wrote on that receipt that's raising new questions. In town for an intermodal conference, he claimed it was a dinner reception for 12 people, part of a delegation of executives from Hyundai and Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. When we asked about it, BNSF said it had no record of any executives being in Houston at the time.
Eric with Channel 2.
Can you talk to us about these expenditures?
No comment.
Did you think Mr. Kwan was doing business there at that strip club? Kwan's boss, Omar Benjamin, and other port officials continued to dodge us tonight, and there are more questionable expenses even they might not know about. Our investigation found Kwan made frequent trips to a barber shop in Taipei. In 2009, he was reimbursed almost $500. Kwan spent thousands during 4 separate visits to the 678 International Club, a high-end restaurant and massage parlor in Shenzhen, China. At home and abroad, Kwan repeatedly billed the port for golf outings, $1,000 or more at a time. He was even able to get reimbursed for $324 Echo golf shoes like these. At Bevmo in Oakland, Kwan racked up nearly $1,000 on his port-issued credit card, buying 50 bottles of this dessert wine.
The types of expenses that you've uncovered really seem not only out of the ordinary, but really ethically questionable.
Assistant Professor Jo Ellen Posner researches organizational misconduct at Berkeley's Haas School of Business. She was troubled to learn this isn't the first time KTVU has investigated questionable spending at the Port of Oakland. In 2008, former Port Commission President Darlene Ayers Johnson spent tens of thousands of dollars on first-class flights and tickets to the Lion King and Disney on Ice.
The fact that these problems are recurring indicates that there's more than a cultural gap here, right? There's a cultural gap, there's an oversight gap, there's really a kind of lack of internal structure within this organization.
Why do you think that is, that the port didn't know about any of these expenses?
We have been taking action to strengthen our policies precisely because we knew that there were issues that we needed to address.
Outside the port today, we found the head of the port's public relations who'd been declining our request for an interview for the last 2 weeks.
And that's all we can say at this time.
What about $500 at a barber shop in Taipei? Did you know about it?
I'm not aware of that expense, and as I said...
How about $300 for a
At this point,
golf
that's all we
shoes?
can say at this time.
There could be more expenses the port isn't sharing. When we asked officials for an internal audit prepared for the port last July, they refused to give it to us. We also reached out to Oakland Mayor Jean Kwan for this story. Tonight, her office said it's waiting to see what comes out of these closed-door meetings here at the port before it makes a comment. We're live in Oakland. Eric Rasmussen, KTVU Channel 2 News.
Tonight's so-called emergency meeting of the Port Commission held behind closed doors may be a violation of state law and subject to an investigation by the district attorney. The Port Commission called the first closed-door emergency meeting last Friday night under a false premise of, quote, pending litigation. Instead, the port hired a $400 an hour public relations crisis consultant and brought him into that closed-door meeting. First Amendment lawyer James Wagstaff said today the commission could be breaking the law.
The moment you have someone who's not a lawyer and is not part of the lawyer team, that gives you some concern that perhaps they're using this as a cover to prevent the public from knowing what's going on.
Oakland Port Commissioners once again refused to comment.
We are outraged.
We are outraged.
The media has exposed what we've known all along.
The media has exposed what we've known all along.
Union workers confront Port of Oakland officials tonight, prompting the board to adjourn this evening's meeting. All of this coming after we uncovered questionable expenditures by a port executive. Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Somerville.
And I'm Julie Hayner. The executive director of the Port of Oakland was put on administrative leave tonight following a KTVU News investigation of port spending. Our report this past Monday revealed that the port's maritime director spent thousands of dollars at a strip club, massage parlor, on liquor purchases, golf outings, and a barber shop.
Our first report has already led to the Port Commission putting 2 top executives on paid leave. In tonight's special report, KTVU's Eric Rasmussen questions spending by yet another port official.
For several nights, we recorded a parade of scantily clad women, many dropped off all at once from a minivan, going into this downstairs bar on 14th Street in Midtown Oakland. It's a familiar scene neighbors say they've been concerned about for years.
The first thing that I thought was that there's just too many of them to be waitresses in this place.
Cafe Juliet, a business that bills itself as a private room karaoke bar, is also where the Port of Oakland's international marketing manager, Lawrence Dunnigan, spent $550 last year. The receipt shows his credit card was charged at 1:44 in the morning. On his expense report, Dunnigan wrote it was a business meeting with 4 members of China Merchants, a large port operator in China who'd been in town for a trade symposium with local and national leaders.
Maybe we're like, what's going on down there? You know, is this like some kind of a weird prostitution thing going on?
When we visited the bar, a regular there told us, quote, "You can get girls here." In an online review for the same location, a customer said he was shown 6 women and was asked, "Which one do you want?" Can you tell us what kind of business is being run here?
Karaoke bar.
We found the bar's manager, John, out front. What about all the girls we see come in here every night?
You see any girl coming here right now?
Well, we've seen girls.
You know, this nightclub karaoke, that's so, like guy and female, we have a company for do the love connection here.
You have a love connection here?
Yes.
Is anybody paying to be with these girls?
No. No. That's what I know. I don't really know.
The scene we observed has been going on for years, but she told us it's not just the women and mostly male clientele that have her concerned.
We've seen a police officer kind of go in and out, sometimes at night, sometimes there's a police car parked out here for a couple of hours.
On our first night outside the bar, a marked Oakland police cruiser parked right in front of us. Moments later, we watched Sergeant Warren Young go inside. Shortly after he left, the women began arriving. The next night, Young's cruiser was back again, but it was another uniformed officer in another patrol car who parked and went inside. Officer Barry Coe made 2 visits to Cafe Juliet that night. The second lasted 27 minutes. As soon as Coe left, just before midnight, Sergeant Young returned. On his 3rd pass of the night, Young drove through the parking lot next to Cafe Juliet using his spotlight on the cars, just as we saw him do the night before.
Pardon me, Sergeant. Eric with Channel 2.
Just a quick question for you. Cafe Juliet on 14th Street?
Yeah, what about it?
Why are you there night after night?
Because my friend works there.
Sergeant Young spoke to us outside Oakland Police Headquarters. Are you doing this as a favor to your friend?
No. I said, my friend works there. Not owner, not anything else.
But is that the reason you're giving this what seems to be a lot of your
No, because I only go down there when I'm off, and I stay there for length of time.
Young offered a different explanation when we told him about our video of him visiting the bar in uniform during his shift.
Well, when I'm working, I do a security check there. Because what happens is that, can we talk off camera for a second and I'll tell you what's going on?
He said he couldn't elaborate because of an investigation, but Young insists there's nothing illegal happening inside Cafe Juliet. Okay. And I had a regular tell me flat out, you can get girls here. Does that concern you to hear that?
No, that is completely untrue. Well, I can't say for the fact because I don't follow those people home, right?
Can you tell us what kind of business is being run here?
Karaoke bar.
We found the bar's manager, John, out front. What about all the girls we see come in here every night?
You see any girl coming here right now?
Well, we've seen girls.
Any police officer should know, as you and I should know, what's going on in there. It's not singing karaoke.
We showed our video to former Alameda County Sheriff Charles Plummer. He says the Oakland Police Department should be questioning what its officers are doing here.
I would start an immediate investigation. absolutely, right now.
Plummer, with more than 50 years in law enforcement, doesn't believe we stumbled into an ongoing investigation.
If they were checking on this place, it wouldn't be a uniform that would be doing it. It'd be plainclothes people.
Continuing coverage now, the Oakland Police Department confirms that it has now opened an investigation after a KTVU special report found on-duty officers making late-night visits to a karaoke bar that offers private rooms. Tonight, we have confirmed that the executive director of the port has turned in his letter of resignation. In the letter, Omar Benjamin said he is stepping down because of questions about the appropriateness of expense reimbursements present obstacles too great to overcome.
The Port of Oakland board members and staff met in special session today talking about more effective leadership. At the end of the session, they released these 2 internal reports detailing misuse of funds.
So why wait from July until today to release it?
We don't typically release audit reports.
The port's acting executive director told me it's a reflection of the port's transformation into a more transparent organization. The audit says some of the port's credit card holders skirted single transaction spending limits, that more than $67,000 in extravagant gifts might violate state and federal laws, that some unsubstantiated expenses expose the port to tax liabilities. The audit also details more than $194,000 in questionable expenses, including tickets to a U2 concert. It says stricter internal controls are needed to prevent abuses. KTVU has learned starting next year, James Kwan will continue to work with the port for a period of 7 months, essentially as a consultant. A port spokesman says Kwan will be a retiree annuitant, working to ensure transition of important maritime business relationships. This is the same James Kwan who earlier this month, along with former port executive director Omar Benjamin, agreed to pay back more than $5,000 they spent at strip clubs and charged to the Port of Oakland. We spoke via Skype with Kelly McElhaney, who teaches business ethics at UC Berkeley, about the wisdom of keeping Kwan on at the port.
Given the egregiousness of the allegations against him and his team, it seems a bit shocking that they would want to continue to associate with what I think is a damaged brand.
The port announced Kwan's retirement earlier this month. On the same day, it released an internal audit and investigation that revealed some of the port's credit card holders skirted single transaction spending limits, $67,000 in questionable gifts that may violate state and federal laws, and at least $50,000 in unsubstantiated expenses that may expose the port to tax liabilities. KTVU has learned Kwan will earn $109 an hour based on his $214,000 salary as maritime director. Kwan retires from the port with pension benefits, but it's unclear if he'll collect a pension and paycheck at the same time. Generally, the California Public Employee Retirement System doesn't allow retirees to collect a pension and continue to work for a public employer, but there are exceptions to what you might call double dipping. The retiree can't work more than 960 hours a year. Over Kwan's 7-month stint, that would average about 34 hours a week. And the retiree must have skills the employer needs.
How many hours a week is that really going to take? And is it really going to take 7 months to hand off relationships?
McElhaney says the port needs to be more transparent.
They need to tell the truth and tell it fast, because somebody else is going to tell their truth. You're doing it right now.
We tried to contact Kwan by phone for a comment but got no answer and no call back. Reporting live at the Port of Oakland, Noelle Walker, KTVU, Channel 2 News.